Do you know, I had the best conversation with someone a few weeks ago that really opened my eyes to the assumptions that people make about what it is that I do as the owner of my business. And I thought this made for a really fascinating podcast episode. So in today's episode of the Heart Centre Business Podcast, I'm going to share with you 10 things that I don't do as a business owner. And I think that some of them might surprise you. This is episode number 456, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes of today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/456. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So, here are 10 things that I don't do as a business owner that you might actually be quite surprised about. Number 1, I do not post everywhere. I don't post on X or Pinterest or LinkedIn. I don't post on Blue Sky. I don't post on YouTube other than these podcast episodes these days. I'm not on every platform. In fact, I have one primary social platform, and that is Facebook. My Facebook page is the best place to hang out with me on social media. It's the place where my best content goes. It's the place where my best ideas go. It's the place where I ask questions, and it's the place where I spend the most time online because it's my primary social media platform. A lot of people assume that I am streaming things into multiple spaces because in the very early days of social media, and even up to this day, a lot of experts, in inverted commas, recommend pushing your content out onto multiple platforms. If you're not everywhere, you're nowhere. But that's actually proven to be untrue, especially in recent years. People have social media fatigue. They don't want to chase you around the internet and follow you from platform to platform. And if they do follow you on multiple platforms, but you're pushing out the same stuff every different place, then very quickly they're going to get tired of seeing the same stuff over and over and assume they've seen your content before. So it's something that I don't do, and it's something I don't recommend. I don't recommend being on all the different platforms. In fact, I recently deleted my Threads account. I deleted my X account. No, thank you, Elon Musk. Don't want to be part of your party. I don't post on LinkedIn. I sometimes get tagged on LinkedIn, especially things like where I've sponsored a sports team or something along those lines, or more corporate-y things that I'm part of. And I still keep my LinkedIn active because it's a great referral source for my clients. I often refer people from my LinkedIn connections to my clients in my business, but I don't post on LinkedIn. I don't post on Pinterest. I don't post on X, Threads, those places. I don't. And, people were surprised when I took this podcast from being a video and audio podcast down to audio only. But my listenership of this podcast skyrocketed when I stopped having the video version available. And I think part of that is because people get a bit perfectionist about how they consume your content. If the video exists, people want to wait and watch the video because that's the ideal way to listen to it. They can sit and take notes at their desk or whatever it is. So people were hoarding the podcast to listen later rather than subscribing and listening as it came out. And so actually making it available in less places has been responsible for a huge spike in listenership. So I definitely don't post everywhere. Number 2, I don't work 40 hours a week and I don't work 8-hour days. Most of my work days are 4 hours or less, and most weeks I work 4 days rather than the 5. Some weeks I also work 3 days a week. My goal in 2025 is to increase my work hours. I reduced my work hours to 5 hours a week when I was recovering from a surgery in 2021. And as part of that recovery, I had a chronic health condition. I had chronic fatigue. I was really struggling with my energy. And so I had to work my way back up to 15-hour weeks very slowly. And then in 2023, I set the goal of working 20 hours a week. I didn't quite make it. It was like 17 and a half I averaged. In 2024, I aimed to work over 20 hours a week. I got to 21. And then in 2025, now my goal is to actually build up to working around 25 hours a week. I'm itchy to get back into my business a little more. My energy is starting to stabilize. I'm able to bring more consistent energy and sustain it more. But I don't want to burn myself out. I don't want to overdo it. So far in 2025, I have been working around 15 to 20 hours each week on average, and about half of that is client facing and about half of that is behind the scenes. So I certainly don't do 40-hour weeks. I certainly don't do 8-hour work days. I don't think I could do an 8-hour work day more than just like virtual conference. I do 2 8-hour days and then I take a week off. I ran a 3-day retreat at the end of 2024 where I did 2 2-hour sessions. So it was 4 hours a day. And even then after that, I took 5 days off because I wanted to make sure that I didn't, get into that like working too long, and I wanted to give myself a nice rest afterwards and balance that out as well. And I did nothing else on those days because I didn't want to like go too big too consistently there as well. So I'm not someone who likes to work late at night. I'm not someone who likes to work early in the morning. I prefer to start my workday around 8 to 9 a.m. and finish up around lunchtime most days if I can. Usually I might have like 1 or 2 client sessions a week that are in the afternoons, but other than that, I keep everything sort of limited to the mornings. It's part of the reason why the planning system this year, all the calls are at 10 a.m. because I wanted to restrict my work days to be mostly mornings. Once again, it's definitely my best time. My best time to work and think and get stuff done is 9 a.m. till lunchtime, and then after lunchtime, I'm pretty done. So I try and keep everything in those hours. Now, here's one that might really surprise you. I do not start my days the same way and at the same time each day. And this is something that people assumed about me, that I had this like amazing early morning routine or start of day routine and I did it the same way and the same time every single day. That is not the case. Number one, the whole premise of having a morning routine that's the same each day and getting up at the same time each day is built on the androgen hormone cycle, which is the assigned male at birth hormone cycle. I was assigned female at birth. So my productivity cycle is a 28-day cycle. It's not a 24-hour cycle. And so because of that, I wake up at different times of day depending on where I am in my cycle. And I start my workday at different times of day, depending on my cycle, depending on what client calls I have, and depending on how I'm feeling. If I wake up and I don't feel like I've had a really good night's sleep, I don't force myself to go through the exact same morning routine and sit at my desk at the exact same time every day, because I'll just sit at my desk and fade out. Like I'll just stare off into space and do nothing. So instead, I really listen to my body. I pay attention to how I'm feeling, what my energy is like for the day. And I do have a start of day routine in that I start my day, when I sit down at my desk, I start my day by opening my planner, making sure I'm clear on my priorities for the day, setting my intentions, getting an energetic connection into my business. But I could do that at 7 a.m. some days. I could do that at midday some days. Some days I don't do it at all because I don't work at all because I don't feel like it. So that was really interesting to me that people still thought that I start my days the exact same way and the exact same time every day, because I do know that like morning routine is seen as something like critical to be a good business owner, but it's very, very patriarchal, very, very masculine energy kind of dominated cycle, which I don't subscribe to. Number 4, I don't always work with a mentor. And I think that this is often kind of bandied about as like a non-negotiable. You should always work with a mentor because you can always learn more and you should always be, pushed outside your comfort zone, I just don't subscribe to that stuff. And to be honest with you, since I had my surgery and my chronic health issues, I don't have the headspace and the energy for it all the time. And I'd rather work with someone when I'm in the mood to stretch and challenge, and I can see that I'm needing some freshness or a different approach than just work with someone all the time just because. So for 2022 and 23, I didn't work with a mentor. I had a wellness practitioner that I worked with and a mindset practitioner that I worked with sort of haphazardly. And I worked with a couple of different experts for like a half day here and there, but I didn't have an ongoing mentor coaching relationship or anything along those lines. In 2024, I worked with someone for a 3-month period, but that was it. And in 2025, I'm working more consistently with a mindset practitioner, but I'm not working with a strategy mentor. Because to be honest with you, from a strategy perspective, I know what to do. I got my strategy. It's just now a matter of really finessing it and seeing it through. 2024, I didn't follow through on a launch plan for a single launch because my health was a bit haphazard. I was still finessing some things in my strategy, and I was in a bit of an experimentation phase with some of my strategy. And my number one strategy of ongoing list growth ads on Facebook was blown to smithereens when I had a reel go viral on Facebook, and then it messed up with my audience measuring and tracking. And so I had to sort of start over at the end of 2024. So for 6 months, the strategy that worked for me so consistently and so well was not available to me. I mean, I could have learned how to access my audience in different ways and blah, 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 but I just didn't. Couldn't be bothered. And so I know what to do, and I know what strategies work for me, and I know what launch structure works for me. It's a matter of just getting it done now. And so I'm really seeing 2025 as a year to solidify my strategy and implement what I know, and working with a mindset practitioner will help me ensure that I'm not sabotaging the success of that or getting in the way of that because of mindset stuff or energy stuff. So I don't always work with a mentor. Ooh, this is a good one. So I don't search for new marketing strategies. I mean, this relates to the one that just came. And I don't see learning new strategies as a good return on investment. Isn't that fascinating? So, for example, if I join a membership, I don't see learning a new strategy as return on investment. I measure my return on investment from the results I get from that strategy if I'm doing something new. In a lot of cases, return on investment for me comes from refining an existing strategy so that it delivers better results, not from learning a new marketing strategy. So I'm not searching for new marketing strategies. I'm not searching for new platforms. I'm not searching for what works today compared to yesterday, because I know what works for me at the moment. It still works for me. It still has scalability. I still haven't seen those through to their full potential. So that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on implementing what I already know, what strategies I already have in place, but implementing them to their full capacity and to their full scalability. And so, someone that I was speaking to particularly a few weeks ago, it was like, so where do you go to learn new strategies to grow your business? I was like, I don't need anything new. I don't look for new stuff at all. That's not something I'm interested in. In fact, I often find new strategies are thrust upon me by the algorithm, and they are often the source of a month's distraction away from my core strategy that was a waste of time. If I'm learning new stuff all the time and I'm not refining my existing strategy and really solidifying the results from my existing strategy, that's not necessarily a good thing. And I think for a lot of people, they learn a new strategy and they're like, look at the return on investment. I learned how to do this amazing thing. And I'm like, yeah, but what were the results of doing that amazing thing? Oh, well, there's no results yet, but I've learned how to do it. That's not return on investment. You've learned something, but you haven't actually seen a difference in your results. And so I don't look for new strategy. I don't actively look for new strategy. I'm not interested in new strategy. I try and avoid finding new strategies because they can often be painful and time-wasting distractions. Now, number 6, I need to be upfront. I don't know that this is a good thing, but it might surprise you that I don't cold pitch to go on podcasts or get speaking gigs or get clients or anything like that. Now, I definitely don't like cold pitching like to get clients. I don't do like the DM slide or email people or friend request strangers on the internet or, do stranger follow backs on LinkedIn or anything like that. I don't do any of that to get clients. That probably doesn't surprise you. But I also don't cold pitch to go on podcasts. Now, I love being on other people's podcasts. It can be a really great little organic way to grow my audience. Often it's great referral traffic. It's a really great way to get new audience members. But if I have an hour to send out cold pitches to be on other people's podcasts, or I could spend that hour finessing some Facebook ads, I'd rather work on the ads, I think, because they're coming for the content I'm sharing. I'm more specific about my niche, and I just feel like it's more my thing. I also don't like writing cold pitches. It's like, hey, I think I could add value to your audience. I just don't know what to say. Now, so take this or leave it. Like, I'm not saying that no one else should cold pitch. I'm just saying that I don't do it, and that might surprise you. I don't cold pitch to be on people's podcasts or to get speaking gigs. I just wait to be invited until they fall in my lap. That might be a silly mistake on my part, but I don't do it. Now, number 7, I don't accept cold pitches. I get cold pitched to be on my podcast all the time. I get cold pitched by people who want to speak at conference all the time, all the dang time. And some particularly famous people have offered to speak at conference for free. My response whenever someone says, I would love to speak at your conference is, we would love to have you at conference. Go buy a ticket so you can get to know us and come along. And a lot of people say, I don't go to conferences unless I speak at them. And to that I say, well, then you're not a fit to speak at my conference because it's a community-led conference. So you probably didn't quite read the brief there. I do invite people to come and speak at conference who've never attended before, but I'm very particular about the kinds of people that I invite, and none of them have cold pitched me to speak at conference. It's always been me inviting them, which is really interesting, don't you think? So if you are listening to this and you're like, I'd love to be a speaker at the Heart Centre Business Conference, buy a ticket. That's really the best way to become a speaker. Most of the speakers have attended conference previously. The ones that haven't are, like, as I said, they're very particular kinds of gaps that I want to fill or styles of speaker or topics that I want to cover, and I know about them through other places or I've met them in other ways. I'm just not into getting the cold pitch. I get cold pitched on behalf of a lot of podcast guests all the time. And it's very clear that they have not listened to the podcast. They have used AI to generate a pitch about the podcast. Oh, I particularly love that you speak to Heart Centre business owners and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's none of it is actually anything meaningful. And it's just yucky. And often the people that are pitching to speak on my podcast, to be a guest on my podcast, like, are the antithesis of what I teach. Like, I've even had pitches from people who are like, I help you persuade people and use persuasive language to get people to be hungry and like they don't even think when they buy your offer. I'm like, yeah, bypass people's consent in the marketing process. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to platform on my podcast. Not. These days, I don't even read most of the cold pitches that come in because my team read them and they have 3 things to look for. And if those 3 things aren't there, they don't even make it to me. And then the ones that do make it to me, I don't accept them. Like, I don't think I've received a cold pitch for my podcast that I've accepted, especially on email, in 3-4 years. So I don't accept cold pitches. There you go. 8. I don't friend request or follow potential clients. Now, I've seen this as a sales strategy that has been taught before, that if you see someone who looks like they could be a potential client, you go and follow them and either pretend you're interested in their service or ask questions about their services, because then you kind of like build their trust or sneakily get their trust by pretending that you're an interested customer, but then the information that they're giving you can then be used as a way to pitch yourself as a provider. I just find all of that so foul and so gross. And I'm just such an upfront, straightforward kind of person that I couldn't pretend if my life depended on it anyway. And so it's definitely not something that I do. I do follow my clients on social media here and there, but it's more from I want to see what content you're sharing so I can give you feedback in our next session, or I want to see what you're sharing because I think other people in my audience might find that helpful. Or so it's more like a client care thing. It's not from a sales strategy perspective. It's not like, oh, if you sign up and buy something from me, I'll follow you on social media, which I know a lot of people are doing these days. Like I've noticed it quite a lot in people's sales pages where it's like, if you purchase this, I will follow you with my Instagram account that has over 100,000 followers, thus providing you with like that referral marketing traffic or whatever. I don't know how they turn it into referral marketing traffic. I platform my clients a lot. I promote members of this community a lot. But I'm not doing it to try and sell to them. I'm doing it to look after them. And it's not something that I would advertise as a like promise in my packages or when people work with me, because some people teach like parenting stuff. I'm not a parent. Why would I follow them, right? Like I would only do that if I thought that I would see content of theirs that I needed to share with my own audience. Or, you know, some people teach like how to attract your soulmate. I'm not going to follow every client of mine that teaches people how to attract their soulmate. I aren't looking for a soulmate. So, yeah, it's really fascinating to me that people are teaching this as a strategy. It's not something I've bought into, nor have I followed. Number 9 of 10 things I don't do, I don't apply for awards. And I actually have done a CEO spot about why I don't apply for awards in my newsletter. So a lot of you listening to this will probably have read that. But the main core reasons that I don't apply for awards are, number 1, the 99.999% of business awards processes are completely rigged and biased and don't actually reflect what's going on in the market. Number 2, it often costs you to apply for awards. Number 3, the people running awards often use the awards nomination and voting process as a list growth strategy. It's actually growing the award runner's business more than it's actually supporting the award winners or the award finalists. And I just find it really hierarchical, and I'm not in that space. It's just not my vibe. So I don't apply for business awards. And number 10 things I don't do that might surprise you, is I don't focus on audience growth all the time. So this is a really interesting one because my audience does grow very consistently, but there are certainly quarters in my year where I'm not focused on audience growth. I'm focused on connection and nurturing and conversion primarily in my strategy. So I'm not always coming up with new ways to grow my audience and get in front of new people and grow my organic reach and da-da-da-da-da. I have a consistent organic strategy on socials. I post daily on my Facebook page. I consistently run Facebook ads. Some of those are very set and forget. But there are also definitely times in my business where I'm not running the ads, I'm not posting as consistently as I normally would on socials, and I don't care because I'm in a conversion kind of focal point. Often I have great plans to ensure that I'm still growing my audience, I'm still doing all the things, but when push comes to shove, I have to decide, I have to focus down because maybe my energy's not there, or when I've been unwell, or, I've had a lot of other stuff going on outside of my business. And I know that it's not always priority number one, grow your audience. Because if I'm constantly looking at chasing new audience and I've got limited time or capacity, that often means that I'm not nurturing and selling to my existing audience. And that's where the majority of my sales come from, is my existing audience, not new audience. New audience growth is looking after next year's sales. So I don't always have to be finding new ways to grow my audience, doing new things to grow my audience, or even growing my audience with new people at all times. And I think that that's definitely a big surprise to people, because I do bang on about consistency of this growth and, consistency of the long-term stuff in your business, but you don't have to be focused on that as your priority number one all the time. And in fact, for a lot of people, they could stand to spend 2 to 3 months ignoring audience growth and focusing instead on audience nurturing and conversion into buying things, because they're not nurturing and converting the audience they have. So growing with new audience isn't going to get them the results that they assume it will get them anyway. Ultimately, my business strategy and what I do has to come from a place of deep alignment with what's a priority for me, alignment with what's important for my market, and alignment with what my strategy needs to be at that point in time. Now, if you are missing that sense of alignment or that clarity around exactly where you want to be focusing in your business, my Aligned Online course might just be the thing that you need. This is particularly helpful for those of you in the early stages of your business, the first 1 to 2 years, or if you're not yet making $5,000 to $8,000 per month in your business. If you're still in those early stages, often it's because there's some misalignment in your foundations or in those core decisions about exactly what your business model is and who you are focused on marketing to. So if you come to the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/456, I'll have a link to my Aligned Online course, and it will give you the details on how to get the best available price at the moment. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.